I am Vasumathi. I am in my home at Meher Baba, 20 Brahmin Street, Saidapat, Madras, India. It's with a great deal of hesitation that I've agreed, under pressure from Irwin, to say a few words about my contact with Baba, and I am trusting to Baba to put the right words in my mouth. Now, to begin with, I met Baba when he came to Madras in 1930. I was 3 years old, and thanks to my grandfather, late Sampatanga, this entire family had the great good fortune of coming into Baba's contact. Strangely, I remember very, very vividly even the very early days of Baba's visit to Madras and my meeting him subsequently at other places. Although I was only 3 and my brother was slightly older than me, we were both given the rare opportunity of playing with Baba and being with him for quite a considerable time. Maybe the reason why I remember these details vividly is because much later in the 60s, when I used to visit Pune, Baba used to make me repeat to the Mandali and others what happened during the early days of his visits to Madras. In fact, he used to recall and say, this girl was very small when I first visited Madras. Then he used to turn around and ask me, do you remember? And I say, yes, Baba. He said, do you remember what all we did? And I used to say, yes. Then he said, now tell everyone what all we did. And I used to tell them how we used to play hide and seek and how we used to play other little games which Baba had invented for children, and how sometimes my brother and I used to make Baba help us in our homework, all these little details. I cannot mention any specific instances because I think the whole association with Baba is one long love story, and somehow details escape my mind when I am trying to recall them. I can only recall Baba's face and his beautiful smile and his beaming grace and the way in which I used to every time break down and weep whenever I was in his presence. Very much to Baba's astonishment, because he used to ask me every time to stop weeping, and I used to determine that next time I would not weep, but I used to get reduced and break down in tears. This happened, I think, throughout my entire association with Baba. It started with 1930, then 34, then many occasions in Bangalore, then Baba's visit in 47 to Madras, and I was very lucky to be transferred to Bombay in my job in 1959. And between 59 and 65, I had the rare good fortune of seeing Baba almost every summer during his visit to Pune at Guru Prasad. I would like to recall one or two instances which cheer me up whenever I feel depressed. The one is that when Baba left Meher Baba in 1947, and just prior to his leaving the house, all of us gathered round him and we were all very sad that he was leaving. And Baba said at that stage, standing in this room, I never leave. I am always here. So that somehow although he didn't mean it literally maybe, I like to remember that he did in fact mean it literally, and that he is in fact literally in this room. The other occasion which I'd like to remember is that soon after the 1962 East-West gathering, my mother and I attended that in Pune, and on the last day Baba had said that no one should seek personal interviews and everyone should go back to their respective places, and everyone had his love and blessings. But somehow I could not bear to go away without asking Baba for a special interview. So although my mother was always obedient, I somehow couldn't be obedient. So I went back to the hotel and then rang up Iraj and asked him to request Baba to give us a special interview. Iraj found out and said that request Baba to give us a special interview. Iraj found out and said that Baba was happy that we had come, and that the right thing to do was to obey Baba, and that we should go back as he had instructed. But somehow I couldn't take this answer, and therefore I wrote a note to Baba and sent it with a messenger, pleading that he should give at least 2 minutes. And because he is compassion incarnate, immediately we had a call saying that we could go, but the interview would be restricted to 2 minutes only. Therefore my mother and I hurried and got into the first taxi and went there. And after jokingly reprimanding us for disobeying him, Baba gave us not 2 minutes, but more than half an hour. And on that occasion, Baba told my mother, who expressed some concern about me, that she was not to be concerned about me at all, because he had his nazar on me, and therefore it was his concern to look after me. So these are the two instances which always cheer me up whenever I am depressed. And although Baba says, don't worry, be happy, I find that's the most difficult instruction to obey. All that I'd like to say is that in this life, the greatest good fortune that I've had is having had this opportunity of coming into Baba's fold at such an early age. Not only coming into his fold, but by his grace having the ability to love him, not the way that he wants us to love him, but at least love him the way, or try to love him the way he wants us to love him. In our family, I think we all love him in our own way, but there is no doubt in our mind that Baba is the avatar, that he is God. And therefore, it's so difficult to talk about God, and it's so overwhelming too. So I find it difficult to proceed after this. Baba has never given any specific instruction as such to me, except that constantly in every letter he used to keep writing, don't worry, be happy. The only time when he asked me or sort of gave a specific instruction was when he asked me whether I had read God Speaks, and I said yes. And he asked me whether I had understood it. I said, no, Baba, I haven't. And he said, I had understood it. I said, no, Baba, I haven't. Then he said, read it again and again and again till you understand. And I have since read it many times, And I must say that by his grace, I come to understand what I originally seemed to be impossible to understand. Once at Guru Prasad, Baba asked me suddenly to sing a song. I was taken aback because I wasn't used to singing. I said, "No, Baba, I cannot sing." Baba said, "Yes, you must sing." I flatly refused. I said, "No, Baba, I cannot sing." Well, I was so conscious of the fact that I might cut such a sorry figure in such a vast gathering. At that time, Baba called one of the lady Mandali, and I don't remember whom, and asked her to sing. She sang, but with such an off-tune song that indirectly Baba taught me a lesson that when he gives an instruction, you just obey, and you're not bothered about the effect it has on other people. You just do it because you love Baba. Well, I did regret that I hadn't sort of, not a song, but I hadn't sort of screeched a little bit when he had directed me. But, well, that was too late. I'd like to say something about the games which we used to play, my brother and I used to play with Baba when we were young. One was hide and seek. Usually, either both of us would hide and Baba would look for us, or Baba alone would hide and both of us would look for him. This game we used to play quite frequently whenever others were preoccupied. My brother and I were left alone with Baba, and we used to play these games. And these we have played in Madras as well as in Bangalore.
How would you play the game hide and seek?
It's just that we would either with the usual way. The Baba would hide himself, and then we would go searching. He would clap his hand when he was ready, and we would look for him. And usually there wasn't there weren't many hiding places, so it wasn't difficult to find him. Only on one occasion something very interesting happened in Bangalore. One night, Baba clapped his hand, and then my brother and I looked for him. We searched the entire upstairs where Baba was staying, but we couldn't find Baba at all. And we were quite scared because, we were left alone with Baba, and suddenly Baba was not there, and we were very worried. Just then my grandfather came back, and then everyone started looking for Baba. And ultimately we found that he was perched on top of the roof, and he was smiling so mischievously. And because that part of the roof was quite dark, it was difficult to first trace him. Later on, with the help of a light, we found that he was sitting on top of the roof. And that was a very interesting incident which happened. And Baba made me recall this quite often when during subsequent years. The other game which we used to play quite often in Bangalore and Madras was what I call keeping pace, although there was no name given to it. The rules were that Baba would be standing in the center, my brother and I on either side of him.
Did Baba make up this game?
Yes, he's the one who he made up this game, and he just used to communicate with us on the alphabet board and give us the instructions, and we were supposed to move according to his pace, which he used to keep varying, as and when he liked. In other words, the three of us had to move forward, but he would move fast sometimes, slow sometimes, and we had always to keep pace with him. Now this was impossible for us, and invariably at a very early stage we would fall back. We would never be in line with him, which meant that we had to start all over again. So this we used to do sometimes again and again, and it seems that Baba didn't regard it only as a game, because even sometimes when we were at this game and everybody used to come and wait for his darshan or watch us playing this game, he would proceed with the game and not discontinue it, although he knew that by that time everyone was there and there were people waiting to see him, but he would continue with the game. So it meant that probably he was trying to communicate in some way, some kind of a lesson through the form of games, because at that stage we were not old enough to understand any kind of discourses or any such thing. And right now I think so often of those games, and I can see a lot of meaning in them. A very interesting game which Baba used to play, and this was in Bangalore mostly, was that he used to fold his left fingers and then cover them up with his right fingers, and then we had to pick the center figure. It was always very difficult, and this game he used to play repeatedly, and I think Baba used to be very tricky, because whenever we managed to be right and located the center finger, he would disturb the fingers in such a way that we would never be sure whether we were right or wrong. But whenever we were wrong, he would always point it out very clearly and show us and say how we had managed to pick the wrong finger. So this game he used to play quite often, and mainly I remember playing this game with him when he used to come to Bangalore. And something which I remember is that every time he used to come to Bangalore, it may be a coincidence, but we used to have hailstorms. And this probably is a coincidence, I don't know. It was always we used to associate. This probably is a coincidence, I don't know. It was always we used to associate hailstorms with Baba's arrival. And there's another interesting instance which I recall. My grand uncle, is known as, he was nicknamed Swamiji. His name was Ramanujam, and he was part of Baba's Mandali, and he had been given some assignment to look after the must ashram. And he used to say how everyone there, Baba used to make surprise visits to the must ashram to see whether everything was in order. And invariably, Muhammad would be able to predict the exact time of Baba's arrival. So he used to say how everyone used to go and ask Muhammad, when is Baba coming today? So that they would be prepared for Baba's visit. Incidentally, this grand uncle of mine, he, towards the end, he was instructed to observe silence, and he fell very seriously sick. In fact, he breathed his last in this house, and after observing silence for many, many months, according to Baba's instruction, he was very lucky, because in his last breath, he called out Baba thrice and died. I think he was very lucky. Somehow I always had a kind of a idiotic feeling, because it's idiotic because it could never have been true of Baba, but somehow I used to feel that Baba didn't love me and that I must have done something and therefore he didn't love me. This sort of impression I used to get because during my visits to Guru Prasad, on certain occasions, I would wait in the queue eagerly so that I could get that one little moment when his glance would fall on me. I used to literally live for that moment. And it would happen often that Baba would make quite a fuss about practically everyone who was just before me. And when it came to my turn, he would just turn round and be very busy talking to Iraj or somebody else. So much so I would never get a chance of having Baba looking at me or having his glance on me. I would just turn around and pass on, ask Iraj to either wipe his dusting face, or he would be very busy talking. In fact, even when I used to be waiting there for his glance to fall on me, sometimes with a volunteer. My sister And I independently came to the conclusion that Baba did not love us anymore. Really, there was no basis for this kind of a feeling, but both of us felt somehow that Baba was either angry with us or that he didn't love us anymore. It was only much later that we compared notes and we felt that we had the same kind of a feeling. And this sort of a feeling, Baba sometimes gives, because even in Guru Prasad, sometimes when we sitting with a number of people, Baba would pointedly pick on someone who was sitting next to me and shower his beaming, loving glances, gestures, communications, whereas they would completely ignore me. But I wouldn't be fair if I did not say that fortunately, these instances were more rare. Although they went home so much that somehow they somehow tended to stay back in the mind and make one feel heavy. Although there were many, many instances where Baba was full of love, and the moment I used to see him, he used to spread out his arms, and I used to go and hug him very often with great inconsideration, I'm afraid, because many times Irach used to say that, Baba, be careful, because I used to crush him and hug him, forgetting that his back must be aching, his leg must be aching. Looking back now, I think I have been very, very inconsiderate many, many times. I used to think only of myself. And on all these occasions, I think that Baba has been so full of love, and not once has he expressed either pain or displeasure, in spite of the fact that I used to be so boorish in the way I used to go and express my devotion to him. I'd like to say something about the horrible day when we got the news that Baba had dropped his body. Now, I came to hear about it quite accidentally, because I was in Pune on work and at a place where the newspapers were not available till about noon or after. But on the day subsequent to Baba's dropping his body, someone came to me and asked me whether I wanted a newspaper at 8 o'clock in the morning. So this was very strange, and therefore I took the paper, and there it was with headline news that Avatar Meher Baba had reached heavenly abode. Now, I was so stunned to see that headline. Actually, I couldn't figure out what it meant. For nearly 5 minutes, I kept staring only at the headline. And I thought first that Baba must have given a discourse on heavenly abode. I thought Baba must have given a discourse on heavenly abode. Then I thought Baba must have opened a place called heavenly abode. Anything but the actual. It was only after quite some time that I started reading, and I got the shock of my life when I found what it really meant. But the strangest thing is that if I had not received that newspaper at that time, on that day, I would have in a few minutes gone back to Bombay, and perhaps I would never have been able to go back and have Baba's darshan, last darshan. The fact that the newspaper, which never used to reach that place before afternoon, not only reached the place, but was actually made away. Somebody came specifically and handed over the paper to me. Seems that it is Baba's grace, and that he wanted this information to be known so that I could take advantage and make this last trip to Meherabad, so that I could bow down to him and pay my respects for the last time. I don't believe that Baba may have dropped his physical body, but I certainly don't believe that Baba is dead. Baba is very much alive, and as a matter of fact, we all feel that Baba is with us, is much more with us now than even before, Before we had the yearning to go and see his physical form. Now we feel that he is with us invisibly every moment. As a matter of fact, somehow, although it's not probably nice to say so, I feel Baba's presence much more now than I did even before.